Today, our verse is Matthew 18, verse 28. But when that same servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii, and seizing him, he began to choke him, saying, "Pay what you owe." This verse is from the parable of the unforgiving servant. Peter asked a question because Jesus had told them how to treat a brother or a sister who sins against them, that they should go and be reconciled with the person. If the person does not listen, they should take one or two others. If the person does not listen, they should tell the assembly of believers. And if the person is still adamant, they should treat the person as a tax collector or Gentile. So the question of Peter was how many times he should forgive in a day. The rabbis taught that one should forgive 3 times. As much as 7 times for Peter would be extremely generous. But Jesus said, as much as 77 times in a day. In other words, forgiveness has no limit. In response to Peter's question, Jesus told a parable. A servant owed his master, the king, 10,000 talents. A talent was equivalent to 6,000 days' wage, which means 10,000 talents were equal to about 60 million denarii, or 60 million days of work. We are talking about over 160 years. Hence the parable says that even if the man, his wife, children, and properties were sold, he would not be able to pay. But the master forgave him the whole sum out of pity when the servant pleaded for time to pay. But when the same servant went out, he found a fellow servant who owed him 100 denarii. Only 100 denarii. 100 denarii were equivalent to 100 days' wage, since a denarius was a day's wage. 100 days' wage cannot be compared to 60 million days' wage. Jesus wanted to show the difference or gravity between what both owed. When he found the fellow servant did precisely what he did to the master, fell on his knees and pleaded for time to pay back. But he would not listen to his fellow servant. Instead, he seized him and began to choke him, saying, "Pay what you owe." Look at 2 things this servant did to his fellow servant. He seized him and choked him. In Greek, the 2 words are krateo and pinego. Krateo means to take into one's possession or custody, or even to arrest or apprehend someone. It means to hold someone fast so that the person cannot escape. Pinego means to choke, strangle, or suffocate someone. These actions of this servant were extremely harsh on his fellow servant. He went physical with him and was aggressive in his actions. Hence, the other servants who saw him reported to their master. Do not forget the essence of the parable. It is about forgiveness. Jesus wants to show that God had forgiven the first servant so much, but he could not forgive his fellow servant for the little he owed him, for the little he did to him. How often do we become very aggressive with people for offending us and even verbally abusing or condemning them? We become that unforgiving servant whenever we judge and condemn others or refuse to forgive them for whatever they do to us. God keeps forgiving us and will always forgive us. But when we fail to forgive others, we withhold our own forgiveness from God. Lord, give us the spirit of forgiveness and letting go. Amen. God bless you. Have a lovely day.